Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is February 7th. Pete Alonso is staying with the Mets. Jack Flaherty is back with Tigers and more. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the middle of the order. We're here with another episode here in the off season. We are in the month of February. That means we are very close to spring training baseball. Less than 2 weeks away from the first spring training game. We're less than a week away before pitchers and catchers report. And there are some players who still don't have a team. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here. Before we get into the news of the baseball world, I want to give you guys a quick update on the scheduling for this podcast here. For myself, of course, a student in school and a working person, we can get pretty busy, but we're going to stay with the Fridays up until the last Friday of February. So we got this episode and 2 more free agent episodes. Hopefully one of those 2 will be talking about Mr. Alex Bregman, who have yet to sign. But from the 28th and on Fridays and Mondays, if you remember last year, we did our TOPs for all the teams, ranking them in my predictions from 30th to 1st, essentially. And it was a lot of work for me last year, and I enjoyed doing it. But I thought this year, to kind of keep it, condensed enough, instead of doing 30 episodes or, a 15-minute episode for each team, we're going to be doing 6 episodes, 1 for each division. So on the 28th, I don't know what division I'm going to do. I don't know the order I'm going to do it in, but that will be the first one. So on the 28th, we'll be talking about 5 teams from one division, and then we'll do one on Monday the 3rd, on the 7th, the 10th, 14th, and 17th, and that will be all 6 of them. That will lead us to the Tokyo series between the Dodgers and the Cubs, which we'll be able to talk about on the 21st then, and then the 24th will be our predictions and, getting everything ready to go, and then on the 28th, it's opening day, 27th is opening day, so the 28th, there won't be much baseball to talk about, but there'll be, some more just talks there, and then on the 31st of March, that will be our first episode going forward into the year. So that's how the month of February and March is looking like. But I appreciate you all. I hope you're going to be around for those episodes. I'm excited to be talking about these and making predictions, and we're getting into that part of the season where it's almost here, and it's very exciting. Kind of when it's February, it's like the month of spring training, so it can get pretty exciting. And I'm with MLB The Show around the corner and baseball around the corner, and there's just a lot of things to be happy about. So with that all being said, I appreciate you all for taking the time to listen to that. And let's dive on into the actual baseball news. And of course, we're going to start by talking about Pete Alonso, because he is re-signing with the New York Mets. It's a 2-year deal worth $54 million. Now, this is going to be a sad story because Pete Alonso is a great player. We've seen him be a great player, of course, making his debut all the way back in 2019. That seems like such a long time ago, and wow, that season was one heck of a season because Pete Alonso was doing incredible things. He was the Rookie of the Year that year, and since then he's a 2-time Home Run Derby champion as well as a 4-time All-Star in his 6 years in the big league. Of course, 2020 COVID year was not as nice to him, and neither was 2021. Still had 37 home runs and was a great player overall. But of course, the last 3 seasons have been much better. 131 RBIs all the way back in 2022. He's a home run hitter and a home run masher at heart. He will rack up some strikeouts for sure. But you know what? This guy in his 6-year career, he's already at 226 home runs. And at this pace that he's on, by 2026, and with his 2-year deal with the Mets, he should have over 300 home runs if he can keep that pace up. He's got a career 850 .254 OPS. The lowest amount of home runs he's hit in a season, not including COVID, was last year with 34 home runs. He still had a pretty decent year, but you could definitely say that last year was his worst year. Still an all-star and still a great player, but, with last year being the contract year, for it to kind of be the worst season of your career outside of, obviously, COVID year, not ideal. But Pete Alonso, man, he deserved more, and he probably could have gotten it. If you guys remember, back in June of 2023, the Mets offered him a 7-year deal with $158 million to extend with the team. He declined it at the time, and apparently this offseason was a little bit crazy. You heard the Mets saying that it's been, exhausting, more exhausting than the Soto deal. Once again, the Blue Jays were in a lot of talk with a free agent and ended up not signing with Toronto. Apparently, the Mets had 2 deals on the table: the 2-year $54 million, which is the one he accepted, but also a 3-year $71 million. So I'm not sure if Alonso wants to stay with the Mets. Maybe this was the best deal that he got. Regardless of how, the tension there may have been, Alonso's back, and I think to Mets fans, this is incredible. This is a good, you're happy to keep Alonso because now your team looks hella good because you got Lindor at shortstop, you got Soto out there in right, Alonso's back at first, Nimmo's in left field, Mark Vientos at third, you re-signed Jesse Winker, he plays DH, Francisco Alvarez behind the dish, Jeff McNeil still at second, Jose Siri in the outfield and center. That's a great lineup. You have your young kids, Luis Angel Acuna on the bench, Tyrone Taylor potentially, depending on how you want to line up your bench, Sean Marte as well. The pitching, you may have lost Luis Severino, but you've brought in Frankie Montas, you're bringing Clay Holmes, you've brought in AJ Minter for the bullpen, Kodai Senga should be back and healthy, ready to go. Sean Manaea has been a stud for a long time in the most recent years, so overall, the Mets team here is very good. Of course, it's on par with some of the top teams in that division because that NL East will be a dogfight between the Phillies, Braves, and Mets. And don't look at the mirror because the Nationals are kind of coming up a little bit. Maybe not this year, but it's going to be a good battle between those 3 teams. Of course, all 3 of them, Phillies, Braves, and Mets, made the postseason last year. Are we in for more of that this year? Or is an NL Central team going to try to make a wild card? Where's the Padres and Diamondbacks and Giants even looking? So who knows? But Pete Alonso back. And I think for the Mets as a whole, for the organization, I think it's a great deal for them. They bring back Alonso. They've brought back Sean Manaea. They've brought back Winker. They brought back Ryan Stanek. Now you bring in Pete Alonso. Jose Iglesias is still there and on the table. Like I said, with the lineup, you don't really need, Iglesias with McNeil and Lindor kind of in that middle infield. You maybe still extend him for the bench even, and like a depth guy, because if one of them gets hurt, and McNeil's left-handed, so if you have a lefty on the mound, maybe you throw in Iglesias, kind of be that guy, because that oh my god and that whole thing, it's his music, it's his kind of vibe, and we, if you missed it, Nicholas Castellanos was in doing a little bit of a talk with, I believe, Chris Rose, and he said that Iglesias, man, was the light for the Mets last season that kind of helped spark them. You could point to Grimace and all the other things, but the Mets will be an interesting team for 2025. There's a lot of upcoming talent as well. We talked about how Luis Angel Acuna will be around, but Ronnie Mauricio, what's his deal coming like? They've got some pitchers like Drew Gilbert, and I think Jet Williams is around as well. I think he's a third baseman coming up, so young talents there, the veteran stars are there, so the Mets look good, and bringing back Pete Alonso definitely going to be an impact for them. So there's that. Moving on, and now let's talk about Jack Flaherty, because he is signing back with the Detroit Tigers. I say back, but he wasn't with them at the end of the season. It's a 2-year deal worth $35 million. He has a player opt-out after this year. So if he wants to stay for the second year, he can. Of course, Jack Flaherty hot off a World Series victory with the Dodgers. That's right, he was with the Dodgers, of course, debuting all the way back in 2017 with the Cardinals. He finished top 5 in Rookie of the Year voting, and then in 2019, arguably his best season of his career, because he was fantastic that year with the Cardinals, accumulating 5.8 career WAR points, a 2.75 ERA. He finished 4th in Cy Young voting and top 13. He finished 13th. I don't know why I said top 13. He finished 13th in MVP voting, 231 strikeouts. He was a dog that year with 33 games. COVID year messed him up a little bit, had a 4.91 ERA, and since then, he's been up and down, but mostly down. In 2022, he had a 4.25 ERA. And then in 2023, he ended up getting traded at the deadline to Baltimore. At the time, he had a 4.43 ERA with the Cardinals. And then in his 9 games with Baltimore, he had a 6.75. He just wasn't great. But last year was different. After 2 or 3 years in the dog pen, he came out in 2024 swinging and was great with the Tigers. He signed a 1-year deal with Detroit there. He had 18 starts with a 2.95 ERA. He was really good. So good that the Dodgers wanted him. They traded him from Detroit to LA. He pitches great for the Dodgers in 10 starts, a 3.58 ERA, 61 strikeouts, and a 6-2 record for him. And that caps off his year. And now he's back with Detroit this year on a 2-year deal. And this year, maybe to stay on Detroit for the full season. Not sure if he's going to get traded once again, but we'll find out. So far, an 8-year career for him, 55-41 record, a 3.63 ERA. He's a good pitcher, and his fastball is nice, and he's got some nice pitchers to platoon with that. So, a strong pitcher. Obviously, you think coming off a great season like he had, he would have gotten a little bit more. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what he's able to bring back with Detroit. Like I said, last year when he was with the Tigers, a 2.95 ERA in 18 starts. That's really good numbers. You have that for a full season. You throw in with whatever else Detroit has, because, hey, remember, this might be a nice trivia question down the line. Which 2 teams surprised everyone to make the postseason? Royals and Tigers were postseason teams. This Tigers team was a playoff team. Of course, we saw, Blue Jays had a down year, Texas had a down year, the Mariners missed out. So there were some teams who, have good players and have good teams that, just missed the dance by a long shot. Tigers were there, and I think they could be again this year if they play their cards right. They've got a strong team. They added Gleyber Torres. They've brought back Jack Flaherty. They signed Alex Cobb. They brought Tommy Kahnle in from the bullpen. They still have plenty of young guys who will continue to grow and develop. Riley Green, of course, headlining that area. Parker Meadows, Matt Vierling, Colt Keith, Jace Young, Trey Sweeney came over in the Jack Flaherty trade. Of course, Javi Baez around. I'm not sure how he's going to have a year, if he's going to be a bench guy, if he started, and what the deal is there. Dylan Dingler is a backup catcher for Jake Rogers necessary. Of course, the ace, the star, the Cy Young Triple Crown winner Tarek Skubal is there as well. Reese Olson, the 1-1 pick in Casey Mize. Technically I think Spencer Torkelson is still around. Not sure what his deal is, if he's going to be around. Another 1-1 pick. Jason Foley and Tyler Holton, Will Vest. We saw some of these guys in the bullpen and how they were last year with the Tigers, making that postseason. So Tigers, very interesting team. Very excited to see what they can bring for 2025, and hopefully Jack Flaherty can kind of be the nice tandem duo to Tarek Skubal alongside the other pitchers they've got there. But Jack Flaherty is a solid 2 option for Detroit, and after Skubal, I think that's you go from a lefty guy like Skubal to then having to face Jack Flaherty the next day. It's a nice 1-2 punch there for Detroit. So Tigers could be ready to roar in 2025 here. Let's move on now and talk about Yoan Moncada and talk about what the Angels are doing, because I find it a little bit interesting. The Angels are signing Yoan Moncada a 1-year deal worth $5 million. which means we could see Tim Anderson and Yoan Moncada on the same side of the infield again with the Angels instead of the White Sox this time. Of course, Tim Anderson signed a minor league deal with the Angels. Hopefully he can figure it out and get back to the player he once was. I do miss myself a good Tim Anderson. But Yoan Moncada expected to play, I guess, to start. I'm not sure what the plan is there for him with the Angels. Of course, Anthony Rendon's still around. Who knows what he has left in the tank, if he has anything that's left in the tank. Moncada, switch hitter. Of course, he's a third baseman, but he's played second before. Angels have Luis Rengifo at second. They have, Zach Neto at short. So, I mean, if Rendon plays at third, then I guess Moncada DHs, I guess. And then you have Ward in left, Jorge Soler out in right, Trout in center, ideally. Nolan Schanuel at first base. And then you have Joe Adell and Moniak and Newman and d'Arnaud. The rotation is, Kikuchi and Anderson and Kyle Hendricks and Reed Detmers and Jose Soriano and they got Ben Joyce in the bullpen. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the Angels look. I think it's a tough year. The team could be fun, and they could have a couple of nice moments and a couple of good games here. But, I mean, when you think of the Astros and the Mariners and the Rangers, let alone the Athletics, who were better than them by 6 games last year, I mean, it'll be interesting to see kind of what they can do here, but I think it's a cool story to see Tim Anderson on that left side of the infield with Yoan Moncada. Would love to see that at some point this season, maybe Zach Neto goes to second and someone gets hurt. Who knows what happens, but, it'll be interesting to see kind of if they can get out there for a game or two together and hopefully, help the Angels maybe have a good year. If Mike Trout is healthy, anything could happen, really. We've been saying that for many years, since he came up to the big leagues in 2011, 2012, but we're still waiting for it to happen for another year for Trout to make playoffs, so maybe this is the year, who knows, but either way, Yoan Moncada is an Angel. Ryan Brasier, we talked about in the last episode how he was DFA'd by the Dodgers, how people, you could see it coming. There's no way you keep signing all these amazing players and not need to get rid of someone. Ryan Brasier is the guy who is the guy to go, essentially, and I mean, it's crazy because, in 2024, you get a 3.54 ERA, like he's a very good pitcher and has been for a very long time, debuting in 2013 with the Angels. He then was hurt in 2014, did not pitch, and he did not pitch for a long time. He stepped away, then came back 5 years later in 2018, a 5-year gap, this time with the Red Sox, and he's been very good for the Red Sox. Played 6 years there before, of course, 2 years ago in 2023, he got traded to the Dodgers. He spent the remaining of that year with the Dodgers, and then, of course, the last year with LA as well. So he is, of course, a World Series champion. He's a 2-time World Series champion, of course, because he was with the Red Sox in 2018 when they won the World Series. So he's got two rings on his, in his portfolio there. A 3.85 career ERA in 8 years. He's 297 games pitched, 285 innings, 281 strikeouts. He's been a very good pitcher, and now he is being dealt to the Cubs. So he is going to be in the Cubs bullpen. Dodgers are getting player to be named later or cash back. So kind of just here you go, Cubs, and we'll take something back at a later date kind of thing. So either way, Brasier ends up with the Cubs there. So good for them. It's a nice pickup for, very simple value, I would say. I don't think anything crazy is going to go back to the Dodgers. Not that they need anything crazy because they're already too crazy, I guess. But yeah, Brasier, a Cub, Moncada, an Angel now. Let's talk about some more signings that happened. A couple of outfielders were dealt this week, and I say a couple, I mean 4. And they're all pretty much the same deal exactly. We'll start with Tommy Pham because he's one of the older guys here. He's signing a 1-year deal worth $4 million with the Pirates. Of course, Pham's been around for a long time, since 2014 with the Cardinals. He's had an 11-year career where he has almost 18 career points of WAR. He's got 139 home runs, 470 RBIs, a career OPS of 773. He's been a spark plug for a lot of teams. We've seen him bounce bounced around in recent years, to say the least. From 2014 all the way up into 2000 and 2018. I don't know why I said 2000 and 2018. That's wrong. 2018. So, 4 years there with the Cardinals, and then was traded to Tampa Bay, spent a year and a half with the Rays. Then in 2020, during COVID, he was with the Padres for 2 years in 2020 and 2021. So that's only 3 teams in the first bit of his career here. And then in the last 3 years, in 2022, he played for the Reds and the Red Sox. In 2023, he played for the Mets and the Diamondbacks. And then last year, he played for the White Sox, St. Louis again, and then Kansas City. So he's jumped around from team to team. He is now joining the Pirates into that mix, and it's a guy who, there's little risk for a team like the Pirates here because, if he plays well, then, great, and potentially you trade him to a postseason team. That's what happened in 2023 when the Diamondbacks traded for him, and he went on to be a big part of the Diamondbacks World Series attempt, making it past the Phillies and the Dodgers. So he can be a great player. He's had great numbers. So we'll see what happens there. But Tommy Pham joining the Pirates on a 4-year deal, $4 million deal, not 4 years. Harrison Bader is signing a 1-year deal with the Twins with a mutual option for 2026. So, similar enough, kind of a 1-year deal, because like I said, mutual options don't really, go the way people plan it in my mind, I think. It is what it is sometimes. It's a $6.25 million deal. And Bader's had a lot of success in his career. He's played with both the New York teams and the Mets and the Yankees, of course. And he's, known for his glove. Of course, he was a St. Louis guy as well. And that's where he started for most of his career, like Tommy Pham was. 2017 made his debut, finished 6th in Rookie of the Year voting in 2018, won a Gold Glove in 2021, and then in 2022 traded to the Yankees, and then in 2023 from the Yankees he got traded to the Reds. I forgot he was the Reds, of course. Last year signed a 1-year deal with the Mets. Had a decent season for them, of course. Was part of the Oh My God fun, the Grimace fun, and the crazy season that the Mets had. But of course, now this year he is going to be joining the Twins, and he'll be mandating, I believe, left field for Minnesota. That's what I would do with him realistically. And of course, if Buxton never gets hurt, when Buxton eventually gets hurt, he would then go over and play center field there. The Twins have some guys out there as well. Matt Wallner, whether you DH him or put him in right field. Willie Castro, do you DH him, put him at second, I guess, but then you have Brooks Lee who's potentially going to be coming up. So, and then you have Eduardo Julien there as well. The Twins have a lot of young talent mixed in with Correa and Buxton and I say young talent. I was about to say Royce Lewis, but Royce Lewis is still young talent as well, realistically. Despite being drafted in 2017, he's always been hurt and everything, so he's never gotten his foot off the ground like that. They've got an elite rotation. I like Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan, Chris Paddock, Woods Richardson. If all those guys click, strong stuff there. The bullpen's nice. It's an interesting team for the Twins, and, we'll see what Bader ends up being able to contribute to that team. But either way, he is a Minnesota Twin for 2025. Continuing on with this outfielder parade of kind of 1 year worth $4 to $6 million, we got Randal Grichuk. He is re-signing and staying with the Diamondbacks. It's a 1-year deal worth $5 million. Last year, Grichuk, kind of a platoony guy, played 106 games with the Diamondbacks, had 74 hits, 12 home runs, 291 batting average, and 875 OPS. So although he wasn't playing every day, he had some clutch hits and some big pinch hit opportunities that he was able to make the most out of it. Had I believe a walk-off or two that year as well. Of course, the Diamondbacks are a little bit interesting here, of course. They sign Corbin Burnes to the rotation, and that kind of cements the rotation as a really good one. 1 through 6, realistically. Corbin Burnes, Zach Gallen, Muriel Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, Brandon Pfaadt, and Jordan Montgomery. We know Montgomery didn't have the year at all last year, but he's still a good pitcher if he can get it right. So it'll be interesting to see how the rotation goes about. Of course, Grichuk, he's probably not going to be starting every day. You got Corbin Carroll out there. You got Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Jake McCarthy. You have Alec Thomas. So there's options there. He's kind of like the fifth outfielder realistically. So if he wants to get two guys a day off, if somebody gets hurt, it'll be interesting to see how that one goes about. But of course, it's a different Diamondbacks team because there's no Christian Walker. They traded for Josh Naylor. Forgot about that. That even happened. That was, before the new year. Suarez is sticking around there. Of course, they have Moreno and of course Ketel Marte. So it's a fun looking Diamondbacks team, and I think they'll have be able to make the postseason this time around. But either way, Randal Grichuk staying with the Diamondbacks, going to try to help them get back to the postseason. And the last outfielder that signed here in one of those 1 year deals is Ramon Laureano. He signs a 1 year, $4 million deal with the Baltimore Oilers, which I find very interesting because Baltimore is a team that's supposed to be kind of going for it. And by all means, Ramon Laureano isn't really the guy that says, hey, we're going to go for it. Now, let me tell you, last year, he started out the year in Cleveland where he was awful. Let me tell you, he's always been a great defender. I'm surprised to this day he doesn't have a gold glove yet. Those early days with Oakland back in 2018 and 19 when he was first starting out. He was a big part in the defense of those teams, had a strong arm, probably one of the strongest arms in baseball at the time. And, with guys like Matt Chapman and Matt Olson and Marcus Semien, man, those Oakland teams were really good. Either way, since then, he's kind of fallen off a little bit. He's always been kind of a subpar hitter. He's had a couple of nice years. 2019, he had 24 home runs. That's his career best year, realistically, in 2019. But yeah, last year, started with Cleveland, was really bad. He had in 31 games and 83 at-bats, or 83 plate appearances, 70 at-bats. He only had 10 hits. He was 1.43 batting average and a 494 OPS. Just awful. They let him go and somehow made his way with Atlanta and the Braves and was trying to get them to help them make the postseason. And from that point on, he turned it on in 67 games with the Braves. He had 64 hits. He had 10 home runs, a 296 batting average, and an 832 OPS. Kind of a complete 180 from the beginning of the year with Cleveland. In general, he finishes the year at 259 batting average and a 748 OPS. And he's a good defender, but is he going to change Baltimore's culture? Not in the slightest when you think about it, because guess what? They brought Tyler O'Neill in from free agency. He's playing left field. They've got Cedric Mullins, who's their guy, mandating center. And then in right field, they have their top 3 Rookie of the Year finalists, Colton Cowser. I forget where he finished. I think second. But regardless, that's kind of the outfield they've got there. Ryan O'Hearn's still the DH. You got Mountcastle at first. Jackson Holliday at second, Gunnar at short, and Jordan Westbrook at third. Alley's behind the dish. Gary Sanchez they signed as a backup catcher. They've got Heston Kjerstad among the young children that they've got coming up. Ramon Urias is still around. So I guess Laureano will make the bench, and be kind of that fourth string outfielder if necessary. But yeah, the lineup is very similar to what it was last year. Instead of Anthony Santander, they have Tyler O'Neill now, and instead of bringing back Corbin Burns, they signed Charlie Morton, which is that's worse, So the two guys really of Burns and Santander, they replaced with O'Neill and Morton, and that's not really going to come through it. They should and will have Felix Bautista back for the bullpen, which will definitely make a difference. Of course, they have guys like Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells who are injured. So we don't know when they're going to be coming back, and that makes a difference there as well. But the Yankees, despite losing Soto, I think they still got better. They've brought in guys like Max Fried and Paul Goldschmidt and Bellinger and all these other guys. They bring in Devin Williams. So the Yankees got better despite losing Soto. The Red Sox, they may have lost Tyler O'Neill to you guys, but they bring in Walker Buehler. They've traded for Garrett Crochet. They've signed Aroldis Chapman, who may not be what he once was, but still, Aroldis Chapman can fling it up there despite, being 36, 37. And their lineup of offense was still relatively the same. So, they still have a great offense. They improving side. The Blue Jays, despite being linked to Sasaki and Soto and all the other guys, I mean, they bring in Anthony Santander from you guys. So I mean, the two guys that realistically they lost besides Corbin Burns, so. I don't know how I like this for Baltimore. I feel like the other teams, like Baltimore's supposed to be kind of the young, talented stud team, and it seems like the other teams are kind of just dancing around past them, and they're going to be able to make these big differences here. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens, I guess, with Baltimore, kind of what season they have. If the young kids keep progressing, then I think they should still be in a good position. But, of course, last year we saw them trade for Corbin Burns, and that kind of made the difference that year for the team. You got to supplement your young guys with veteran superstars, and they're not really getting the opportunity to do that. And even when they do have the opportunity, they're not really taking it. So I think Baltimore needs to kind of take a look in the mirror, because they kind of remind me of the Blue Jays from 2019, 2020 when Vlad came up and was young, and when Bichette and Biggio, and they had Alek Manoah who was just developing out. And they tried bringing in Springer, and they tried bringing in Barrios on the trade, and guys to help them supplement that team, and Kikuchi, and they had Ryu at the time. But they didn't do enough offensively, and then they ended up trading away Hernandez, and that's kind of similar to like them losing away Santander, I guess, a big bat. So I'm just saying there's some similarities, and you don't want to be the Blue Jays, in where Baltimore is in 2028, 2029, where now they're, back in the basement of the AL East and back to losing 100 games in a season because Gunnar signed elsewhere and Adley signed elsewhere, and who knows what happens. But that's just what I'm worried about with Baltimore right now. So something to keep your eye out for. And that was kind of all of the news and signings that have happened this week. But we've got a couple of more bits of information. Carlos Carrasco did sign with the Yankees on a minor league deal. Didn't mention that anywhere, but that's cool. Throw it in there. Anyways, on to more precedent situations here. Pat Hoberg from the MLB umpiring staff has been let go. He's been fired by the MLB. Reason why? There's some situation, of course. If you don't know who Pat Hoberg is, he's among fans and among, people and players and everything, he is a really good umpire. And, he's had a lot of great games in 2022 in the World Series between the Phillies and the Astros. He called a perfect game, did not get one strike called the ball, not one ball called a strike. He was perfect. But he's been fired. He's been sharing betting accounts with a friend. There's no evidence that he himself has bet on games or manipulated any that he worked on. But that's something that obviously you can't do, and a gambling incident once again takes out a person in the sports world, and it comes down to the simple fact that, hey, the rules, don't do it. And somehow we have stories, especially I feel like a lot in the last 2-3 years among, basketball had a couple, Terry Rozier right now, if any basketball heads out there, he's getting looked into it. So I mean, there's just so many things. It's just like, just don't gamble. If you're in the world, if you're connected in the industry, if you're getting paid millions of dollars to play, sports, to umpire, referee, whatever it is, like, it's very simple. You can't bet on the games because obviously you have control over what happens, so it's illegal. Okay, just don't do it. It's not hard. Just don't. Don't make your friends do it for you. Don't do any of that stuff, because eventually it comes out, and here it is. Who knows what happens now for Hoberg, but he won't be umpiring any more games in the MLB. And speaking of the gambling situations, of what could happen at the very least, the Ippei situation has come to its final chapter, its final conclusion. If you haven't been aware, since last year, there was reports that Ohtani was gambling, and then it turned out his translator was fired, and it was this translator who was apparently doing it. People thought, oh, maybe he was doing it for Ohtani. No, he was just a bad guy and just, was being a fraud as Ohtani, trying to steal his money and make big, large bets and have plenty of gambling debt and all this other stuff. And that situation has come to a close now because he has been sentenced to 57 months in prison. So Ippei will be having some jail time. As expected, we knew this was coming from miles away, and I mean, it's to nobody's shock or surprise, but it's just, hey, that's because you're a bad guy and you gambled. And you know what? Just maybe, don't gamble if you're playing a sport. It's kind of just a simple concept, I guess, to me and to probably you as well. So, I mean, I don't understand what's the, like I get it, gambling's fun. Don't gamble. DraftKings sponsor me. But no, like, it's just, just be smart. You just don't, like, I don't know. I have no words, if, like, because it's like it affects us in a way as the fans because you hate to see it. And Pat Hoberg was a good umpire, and Ippei was, seemed like a cool guy when he was with the Angels, and Ohtani was with the Angels, and seeing him translate for him and everything. But it just sucks to see, guys who you kind of maybe look up to. Like Pat Hoberg is a good umpire. It's not like Angel Hernandez is doing this stuff though, because who needs that? But I mean, it's just an interesting and a tough way, but it is what it is, and that's all I've got. And that's all I've got for the episode here today, guys. So thank you everybody so much for joining us here. If you skip through and you happen to miss the first part of the episode, I gave a little schedule rundown of how the next couple of weeks are going to look like for the middle of the order here, my podcast, of course. So if you missed that and you're curious to see what kind of things got coming up here, just, timestamp it. It was like the first minute, I guess. You go back to that and, give a little brief through over kind of the division episodes we'll be doing, and, of course, predictions and the start of the season coming up. So a lot of good stuff happening in the world of baseball. We've got about 2 free agent episodes left to talk about. So let's get these guys signed and get them ready for spring training. We got Alex Bregman. Is Andrew Heaney signing? Is Darren Robertson signing? DeYoung, Kenley Jansen, Lance Lynn, Nick Pivetta, etc., etc. So, plenty of guys here. But yeah, I appreciate you all. Thank you, buddy, so much. And I will see you next time.